Hey guys, Craig with JS Racing Products. I'm going to show you an example of one of our universal oil feed and drain kits. Now, depending on which exact turbo model you buy from us, will determine exactly what pieces come in the kit. But overall, it's very similar. Some may come with a few more pieces, some may come with a few less. But overall, what you do with them and how they work is very, very similar. So let's go ahead and go over how this is going to work. The reason we call this a universal oil feed and drain kit is because it's not pre-assembled at all on the drain side. You'll get a bare piece of hose that's usually around 2 feet long, and you'll use this piece of hose then to run your drain out of the turbo, and you'll use it with these other pieces. For example, with this particular model, this is the bare bung that I talk about during our consultation that you'll actually end up welding to your pan or to your timing cover. You'll see that this side's not threaded in any way. It gets welded to the pan or to the timing cover, and of course a hole drilled into so the oil can escape. Now, your job will be to use this piece of hose to connect between the bottom of your turbo and this. We throw in a couple extra fittings here. This is in this particular model of turbo, for our 7875 model. This is the bottom plate adapter. That'll actually use this gasket and these two bolts to bolt fast to the bottom of the turbo. Remember, the drain always has to face straight down, and the feed always has to face straight up. And also remember that this hose always has to run downhill. It can never run straight across or uphill in any way. It has to always be a downward angle. So once that's fastened to the bottom of the turbo and you have your bung welded fast to your pan or your timing cover, and you have this cut to about the right length, you'll then use these pieces to actually do the connecting. Now, we do include these two here have are 45-degree angles, and we also include a straight piece, and then of course this piece here actually just threads into this bung, giving you the ability to use these fittings. So you may end up using a straight or a 45. You'll end up having a piece left over. We just give you a couple options here. Throw an extra piece in. So whether you need a 45, or a straight to do your particular orientation is totally up to you. Use what you have to. And of course, hopefully you've assembled a stainless braided line. You'll notice in this case this one is not stainless. This is another option we have sometimes. It's the fiber coated style. But it's the same principle. You cut it to length and you put it into the compression fitting in here, seal it, and you basically make your own line. Alright, so that's the drain. The feed is a little simpler. The feed is pre-done. You don't have to make this up. That's a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is you can't mess it up because there is pressure through here. Whereas this is just gravity drained. It won't really leak. But this is only so long. So I'll get to that point here in a second. Here's your sandwich adapter that goes on the top of the turbo, the bolts, and the gasket to fasten it down. In this particular case, we include all of those. And here is even a couple extra pieces. If you were going to try to do some sort of a T-fitting, which I'll get to this in a second, we usually don't recommend that. So how this works is this. This is 1/8 inch NPT. That's Nancy Paul Thomas. Alright, thread. If the turbo is going to be located in the front driver's side area or driver's side-ish, this will reach from the turbo to the little block-off plate that's above the oil filter on a 4.8 or a 5.3. A 6-liter has a oil cooling system there that most people delete anyway when they do a swap with a 6-liter, so you'll just have to get the plate off of another LS motor like a 5.3 or 4.8 or an LS1 or something and get that plate. And what you do is you drill it and tap it to 1/8 inch NPT, Teflon tape on here, thread it into that plate. Once it's threaded into the plate, bolt the plate back onto the side of the motor. Poof, you got a feed for that side. You won't even need to use any of that. And then this obviously threads into this, onto the top of the turbo. Okay? Now, if you want to put the turbo in a different location, like say the passenger side, or the passenger side-ish area, this will not reach from the oil filter to there. So the second location you can draw oil from on an LS motor is at the back of the intake manifold. There's a sensor back there that triggers the oil pressure gauge in the dash, whatever the motor was originally out of. If you're not doing a swap and you still have, like, say, a Silverado truck and you're relying on an oil pressure gauge, it's kind of unfortunate if you're going to put it in the passenger side area, because that sensor has to come out, and you'll end up having to get an adapter from, I think it's Mr. Gasket that sells it, but they basically sell an adapter that goes into the back of the LS block to let you run like an aftermarket mechanical gauge, like an aftermarket oil pressure gauge. And that happens to also be 1/8 inch NPT, so a little Teflon tape, buy that adapter, put a little Teflon tape on here, bolt the adapter in, run this into it, and now you can feed it. If you are kind of bummed out about losing your, this is if you have a stock Silverado or something, obviously, or a stock LS already equipped car, if you're bummed out about losing your factory oil pressure gauge, well, good news is they're junk anyway. They're not really accurate, and you're probably going to want to stick an aftermarket mechanical one in. And in that case, run it down to the block off plate by the oil filter. Same thing, tap it 1/8 inch NPT and run your aftermarket, like Sun Pro or whatever you buy, mechanical gauge in. One thing that people make the mistake of sometimes is they say, well, let me just run a mechanical gauge and the turbo feed all from the same location. And if they put a T-fitting, which like one of these. Well, the bad news is about doing that is now your oil pressure gauge will always read low, because this is always spraying out some oil pressure into the turbo, and so it's not going to be like deadheaded and giving you full signal. So run your oil pressure gauge and your turbo feed from the opposite location, and you'll have a good reading gauge, and be good to go. So that's how our universal oil feed and drain kit works and what it looks like for this particular model. And this is pretty much the same for our 76, 78, and a couple other models. Our other bigger turbos, like our 80 millimeter and our 88s and stuff like that, they have a little different configuration as far as the actual parts you get, but the principles are the same and the rules are the same. Okay guys, so JS Racing Products Universal Oil Pressure Oil Feed and Drain Kit. That's what it looks like and basically how you set it up. Good luck.